Okay, today we've got something a little bit different because I've got a microphone. You can see a picture of me in my friend's press outfit, which he used in Iraq. And we can see a picture of the ballroom in the King's Domain. Now I'm going to use these as my backdrop. We're going to discuss something here that I think is very important. So I don't want you to focus on me. I want you to focus on what's actually being shown to you. Because this stupidity never ends. Now, we don't know what the status of Desi Ned Kelly Freeman is, but we can also demonstrate that we've had interactions with his people and him in the past. And we can also demonstrate that they blocked us and didn't want to know what we had to say that might have helped Desi in this court case over the last 2 years. We can demonstrate that there is ego, and this ego has led to a world of shit because you want to deny the things that were established at the law. And instead of using those things defined at the law, you choose instead to believe in your politicians. Now, you don't want to understand court process. You don't want to understand the law. You don't want to understand the foundations of your Anzac and your country, how it was occupied and by whom, then you are playing Lawtard. You are not in full comprehension of the things going on around you. So as we start, we're going to listen to Bob Katter, and I'm going to explain to you why Bob Katter is manipulating you and manipulating you on purpose.
Oppression becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Yes! And underneath that was written, every man dies, but not every man lives. Yes. That is Australia. That is Australia.
So we hear Bob Katter speaking Article 61 of the Magna Carta 1215. Now what you'll come to realise is that several kings passed through the Magna Carta, and the Magna Carta 1297 was established as a part of Australian constitutional law. Changes were made to the Magna Carta which go in line with the liberties of the forest. So the Magna Carta was split into two documents, and the Magna Carta that exists in the Parliament is the 1297 version of the Magna Carta, which does not include Article 61. Now, Bob Katter has just incited Australians to rebel against something. Rebel against the actions of government while flying a government flag and under parliamentary privilege. This means that if you were to say the same things, you would likely be charged with inciting violence. So Bob Katter is manipulating the crowd for a vote, while inciting the crowd into violence, because he mentioned not all men live, some men die. That includes civil war promoted by a politician serving foreign powers while flying a blue Zionist flag. They are manipulating you into belligerence so they can use their force against you. Now, I want to address this Desi Ned Kelly Freeman incident, but we also see that the sovereign citizen ideology in Wayne Glue is coming forward. Now, Wayne Glue was an ex-police prosecutor who received an Order of Australia medal from the Queen for learning the Constitution. So he is a member of the Order of Australia and a member of the Police Association. This man lost his home for failing to pay rates and playing silly games with the council, and continues to uphold his stupid shit to this day. Now, he asks us not to mock him, but unfortunate for you, Wayne, you've just said some stupid shit on a video, and I'm going to rip into it.
It is my solemn belief that you set him up. It's my solemn belief you killed him. And if that's the case, or you're going to, don't. Because the people of this country will find out. Then Albanese, Penny Wong, and all you idiots that sit in our parliament, and you, Jacinta Allen, you and that little freak that you call the Premier previous, will stand trial for what you've done. When you fired on the people of Victoria, you lost it from me. I had no faith in anything you could ever do again that would be inside the law. When you spend your life standing up for the law and for what's right, which is what I did, I will not and cannot accept what you did as lawful. To fire on the people of this country, rubber bullets or not, if it hit them in the eye, they'd lose their eye or die. Doesn't take much for a little bit closer impact to take out someone's eye and their brain. You think we're going to sit back? Am I a silly old bugger? Probably sometimes. But I'll tell you this, you mark my words. The people of this country have had a guts full of you. When we march on Sunday, I say we because I'll be there in spirit, I can't march. At this time I'm lucky to walk a couple 100 yards, and that's how it is. But it doesn't faze me. What I'm saying is what I feel, what I believe. I've never been wrong with my hunches. If I am this time, so be it. But if you find him and you kill him, and you're not justified in doing it, you are going to pay. You are going to pay. Believe me, I have no hatred for you. I forgive you for the garbage you've pulled so far, because I have to. Because I answer to him, not to you. But what you're doing is criminal, and you are not going to get away with it. Mark my words, you will pay. You think I'm stupid, you get your media and all your idiots and laugh at me, I don't care. But I know in my mind and in my heart, you have done something wrong. You set this up. Nothing you have put out there makes sense. I know what it takes to get a Glock out of a pouch under your arm, which most CIB carry. Well, they do in this state. It's set up so you can't just rip it out and make a mistake and shoot people with it. Your training would have taught you to do other things. Your training would have taught you not to treat people the way you are. Your training would have taught you to be humans, not dogs. And if you go out in that bush and shoot a person who is not convicted, you're nothing but a dog. Even if he did do what you said, it's not your job to kill him. It's not your job. Your job to bring him to justice. And if you kill him, you've got to explain a lot of things. Why 7 spineless dogs, that's all they would have been if they stood back after 3 of their comrades were shot and didn't even bother to see where the alleged offender went, and expect people to believe that you did that, you're a nuthead. You're a lunatic. The evidence as I see it is you've lied about everything. The reason you were there and everything.
See, Wayne still hasn't picked up on what the Hague Conventions actually means to Australians. Wayne Glue is still berating the people in office and not understanding that they are administrators under the rules of usufruct obligated to the United Nations as defined in the Criminal Code, codified law of a foreign occupying power that is obligated to the United Nations. Criminal Code Volume 2 demonstrates their obligations to The Hague and their obligations to the United Nations. Wayne is still unaware that there are officers on the street in the protest that are United Nations police officers wearing United Nations issued hardware. He is still pointing the finger at everyone else and is refusing to accept certain things at law that might involve administration. Now, he is correct about them shooting him and not bringing him to justice. They are not judge, jury, and executioner. That is very clear. His experience as a police prostituter allows him to speak with some sort of knowledge on this, because he would have brought other people into the courtrooms for their traffic fines, for their minor crimes. I don't know what sort of level Wayne Glue stood in a courtroom, but you're about to hear that he knows fuck all about the Constitution.
You have got a company called Child Welfare or whatever, Child Protection or whatever. The Constitution that I love and follow because it's the supreme law says clearly, if you're a company set up under state legislation, once you're set up, come under federal legislative authority. Where is the law, not your jokes, not your statutes, that says a company can implement law, can carry out law? You can't. And every single one of you have ABN numbers or ACN numbers. So you cannot implement law.
So Supertard here talks about corporations and the law and the Constitution, yet when you go through the Constitution, there's nothing in it that defines what he just stated. He's a bullshit artist, right? Corporations, companies, are registered under the Corporations Act 1989 and the Corporations Act 2001. Corporations write their own constitutions, which are at law forms of law. A company can run its company internally by its own bylaws or laws defined in the company constitution. He speaks about a Commonwealth constitution, but there is nothing in that constitution that links to what he is stating here. He also believes in some sky daddy instead of some real foundations in God, as per the preamble under the blessing of Almighty God, that would define that God in the Constitution. He has blind faith in a sky daddy and says he follows the sky daddy and not the foundations in the blessing of Almighty God as defined in the preamble or introductory text to the Constitution Act. Wayne Glue is bullshitting.
Supreme law says clearly, if you're a company set up on the state legislation, once you're set up, come on the federal legislative authority. Where is the law, not your jokes, not your statutes, that says a company can implement law, can carry out law? You can't. And every single one of you have ABN numbers or ACN numbers. So you cannot implement law. You can't. Why? Because we said. Now, I'm not going to stay on here. I'm not whimpering. I'm not going to cry. Only for that lady and her kids if you murder him. But no matter what he did, if you murder him, which is all that's going to happen if you kill him, you murder him.
Oh, they're all corporations. They all have ABN numbers and ACN numbers. Supertard here is not aware of the Hague Convention's Article 55, administrators under the rules of usufruct. Now, if you're administering a body like a country, then how do you administer all those privatized assets? You would do it through some sort of financial administration, given that a reserve bank and the IMF are involved in that transaction. Administrators under the rules of usufruct, use of the fruits, all of the country's assets, the profita prondera in the land, agriculture, mining, forestry, fisheries, and all unmovable property. Now, when the Pope went home, he called in all movable property. He couldn't take with him unmovable property, but he could use the fruits of that property under administration. An occupier came into your land to manage your affairs and brought the international laws of armed conflict onto the table. While Sky Daddy Believer here believes in a whole bunch of horseshit, which is getting all of you into trouble. This whimpering muppet, if you murder him, that's all that's going to happen if you kill him, was the same statement, Wayne. Right? Because this is intentional. And the facts don't add up, but they kind of do. So we're talking about child protective services here. So what's he done? What's the charge? What's the claim? Right? And the fact that you dribbled on about corporations demonstrates very, very, very clearly to all and sundry that you really do not comprehend what occupying powers do to a country when it is bankrupt and it joins the International Monetary Fund.
Including his family. They weren't there when he did it. And now it's come out his wife and his child wasn't there. And if that's true, I don't know, because there's so many lies come out of you people. But if you kill him, you will pay. I've got nothing more to say, only God help you, and God have mercy on your soul if you do that. You have to be pretty sick and a proper moron to kill that person. Amen. And that's all I can say to you, because nothing you say makes sense. The media, I don't believe, you're paid liars, and that's murder against the society. Yeah, Mitchell, I agree. We have served warrants that end in bloodshed. All these cases smell of a similar rat. Yeah. I cannot say enough to just tell you, you were sworn to serve this country, serve the people, not politicians. They're not people. The satanic worshipping morons who think they have the right to rule over you when they have the right to rule for you. I hope what I said has some value. If I'm wrong, as I said, so be it. It's my feelings after the training I had and the years I spent in the police force that I'm right. Now you sort it out, because if you do that deed, people will find out and you will pay, in or out of a prison or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to face God one day, and you will, for what you're doing. You think I'm a religious nut? That I'm not. I don't believe in religion. But I do believe there's a God, and I do believe you will pay. So you just take what I said, and you better not just shoot him like a dog, because he's not a dog. Even though he might have done it. I don't know. Yeah. They're against pets. Well, every single one of the police and the politicians, judges, magistrates, and all the lawyers, you're all guilty of pedophilia because you've let it sit and done nothing about it. Now, I'm not going into that. That's the end of it. It's my belief that you're out to kill him. If you do, you'll pay.
So we can see he's a little bit of a nutter, this Wayne Glue. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in God. I believe in the Sky Daddy upstairs. I don't believe in the foundations of the blessing of Almighty God in the Constitution that I'm supposed to be skilled at. I served as a police officer fucking over my own countrymen. I fined them all the time. I put them before courts. I prosecuted them. So you can see here that he is trying to save face, but at the same time, he is right about the guilt that would strike someone that is unprepared to murder people, but he's not taking into consideration Judges 2:12. You went whoring after other gods around you, Wayne. You served a foreign faith, a foreign crown, a foreign flag, a foreign realm, born from the blessings of Almighty God. So your ignorance of the Constitution is starkly apparent, and your lack of knowledge in relation to the crimes that have been committed by government, while you point the finger around like a child that's tantying and whimpering, you are basically describing yourself. An incompetent fool that has managed to con Australians time and time and time again. You do not comprehend international law. You do not comprehend the blessing of Almighty God. You disregard it from the Constitution itself when it defines a line of authority in the matter that would define those police and those United Nations officers to be serving foreign gods. Judges 2:12. Wayne himself served foreign gods as a police officer and police prosecutor.
Nice to see that the globalist sociopaths are doing the same playbook all around the world, isn't it? Because it's the same old crack where you get a bloke who runs on a mandate and wins a mandate. Trump won a landslide and he took all of the contentious swing states, what they call them out here, which is where the, jump between the parties. He won all 7 swing states. He got a mandate to do as he pleases, and every single thing he tries to do, they insist on fighting with lawfare, which is relevant, isn't it? Because this is what we're talking about with Epping. The people think one thing, and the globalist sociopaths think another, and it can't continue. It can't continue. What's mad is that we've tolerated it for as long as we have. I think it's time for a reckoning. How can you delude yourself into thinking you live in a democracy when we have the elections, the people run on a open platform telling you exactly what they're going to do? You respond by voting for the person whose platform you like the best, And then when they get in, these activist lawyers and judges and scumbags do the exact opposite of what they tell you. Or if the person happens to be honest about it, the judges and the lawyers will do everything in their power to stop them doing what they told you they were going to do, and that's why you voted for them in the first place. Think of that. So I keep saying, so it's not bloody hyperbolic to call it authoritarianism. That's what it is. If you vote for them on a specific platform and then they get in and do the exact opposite, or use lawfare to stop someone who is honest about it, doing all the stuff that they promised the people they were going to do, you're living in an occupied nation.
Now, the guy you just saw is an ex-military man. He knows a few things that civilians just are not aware of. And Wayne Glue is nothing more than a civilian. This needs to be recognised in his ignorance of what's going on under the laws of armed conflict, along with the United Nations. So I threw that in there to demonstrate something that you're not picking up on, because you're being sold this garbage by an old bloke who lost his home for failing to pay rates and failed to put arguments before the courts in a proper manner. And he's a police prosecutor that gets the Constitution wrong. So when we look at Desi, I'm going to show you another bloke that I had on the phone about a year ago, about 10 months ago. And instead of listening and taking heed to what was shown to them, they instead defended their way of doing things and then blocked the phone number so that I couldn't even call him back. This is a group of people that I am sure are involved with Rodney Cullerton and Wayne Glue, who have pushed this sovereign citizen crap around for 20 years now. Isn't that right, Wayne Glue? Isn't that right, Rodney Cullerton? You took that red flag, which I established at law, and used it in politics, disgracing your Anzac and the military that they were, by abusing that flag with Craig Kelly in the parliament that serves a different flag under the rules of usufruct. Now, some of you are confused. What are the rules of usufruct? The use of the fruits in an administration of your national debt. Wayne Glue is completely bewildered when it comes to the finer details of what's actually happening in your country. And I am sure that Wayne Glue is involved in teaching these people the stupid that you're about to see in a video.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're well. I've had a little bit of time off, so lots been happening since then. I just want to touch on Desi Freeman and what's going on there. I'm just going to release a video after this as I pulled off Rumble, and it's Desi Freeman showing himself, representing himself in court. Now, he tries his best. It's pretty full on what he's sort of trying to do with the rest of magistrates and whatnot, but the legislation that he gives out is all legit. The interpretations is what the magistrate says, no, it's whatever. But at the end of the day, the man is saying he's exhausting all that he can do in the courts. He's then, confronted with the police there. He says he's under duress, he's feeling intimidated. And, this is a reason why I developed the Self-Represented Litigant Association, was so that there was a circuit breaker between, people going in to the courtrooms and having this sort of real stash in a sense. Now, there's some serious allegations made there, and those allegations have been not only made by Desi, but made by many other people, and not just those judges, of other judges. And the thing is that there's no accountability. So people just keep getting frustrated, and you hear Desi say, "Oh, you're just railroading me," and I mean that happened to me all the way through. Concerning thing is, my daughter heard the recording of Desi when he walked out of the courtroom. My daughter goes, "Oh, he sounds like you, Dad, exactly the same." I'm like, "I know." So, you know, and then we've got the ABC doing what they did. That was, you know, very wrong on their part. That thing's getting solved and dealt with behind the scenes, so I'm not going to go into that because we've got some serious cats onto that job. And that was another reason why I hadn't posted anything for a while, because we were sort of working behind the scenes and thinking about and collating a lot of evidence of defamation. So I'll leave it that part of that. Now,
So here we can see I've created a tard group to help tards get into trouble with all these problems that I don't know anything about. And you're going to see that very clearly, because this man obviously helped Desi with his court processes, created a litigation group so that you could re-present yourself, because you can't present yourself. You can't speak properly for yourself, and you don't understand what you're representing. That's a first. Secondly, we can see that the ABC propaganda that was pushed out with the David Halpin didn't mention me in any way, shape or form, when David Halpin's the one I sat before that caused David Halpin to break the law. David Halpin went on mental health leave shortly after that. Now, when we look at the ABC, they've put propaganda out on behalf of the executive branch of government, who controls ELBO, which is linked to a foreign military power. That foreign military power has taken the right to declare war away from your military and turned them into the Australian Defence Force, a peacekeeping force under United Nations law. So we can see very clearly that the ignorance of all of you perpetuates because you don't want to listen to someone that has actually had the experience of working with military men, working with war photographers, working in a server room in a government department and council, and has done a whole lot of things before the courts to prove and establish that you're an occupied people who should be standing in the lineage of your Anzac. Now, Wayne Glue detracted from this, so did Rodney Cullerton, and now we have the Sovereign Citizen Litigants Group. And you're going to see how well that litigants group actually works, because the failure in the courtroom that you will witness in a second is going to become very, very evident to those that know what's going on.
with Desi still going on the run, I mean, the things that I ask and question is this, because I'm critical, I always do this. The reports say that 10 police officers went out there. They did a risk management assessment before they went out there. I know about that because you're doing them on the rigs. You're supposed to eliminate the risk. If you can't eliminate the risk, you have to minimise the risk. Now, they wouldn't have been able to eliminate the risk, well, in the sense of, going there and potentially having a gun there. Now, what it is though, they knew the premises. They knew the premises very well. 10 police officers. Now, you would think if he was on the bus, is that what maybe the story is, he was on the bus, why weren't the other 7 police officers surrounding the bus? So what doesn't make sense is that from the reports it says that Desi was able to shoot 2 police officers, wound a third, pick up the guns of the two other police officers, their handguns. Make sure that he's got his reading glasses on. He's got some khaki tracksuit pants on, a green jacket, and he runs into the bush. Now, what happened to the other 7 police officers? No one got off a shot? No one drew their weapon? No one's made a statement? No one. No one's made a statement about anything. Unless I'm wrong at this point. This is Saturday morning, the 30th of August. So there's some serious questions that need to be asked. Like, where are the other 7 police officers? What happened to the risk assessment? Where did that go wrong? There's no explanation. It's all hidden. There's no transparency. So at this point, it's very hard to believe anything. To be honest with you, I don't know. I've got no details whatsoever. But I know there's country there, and it's very, very rugged terrain, and it's in the middle of winter. So it's like, if you don't know what you're doing, someone like that, any other person, you'd probably freeze to death in a couple of days with having no gear on you. Remember, he left with no gear. So, they've got 400 and something people looking for him. They can't find him. They've got all the technology in the world, still can't find him. I mean, this isn't adding up, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm just going to leave you with that. I just want to make this video. There's other stuff I'm going to make from what I've been doing in those 2 weeks, but right now I just want to make this video and let people know, because I'm going to add Desi's video of his court hearing after this. Now, it just doesn't make any sense that you're going to say that he's a sovereign citizen that has no respect for the law, thinks he's above the law, when he goes in there and he speaks better law than anyone in the room, and no one rebuts or refutes it. They just railroad him. So check it out for yourself.
No concern for the fact that he's involved in that Lawtarding in relation to a sovereign citizen defamation on the ABC, while he says, they speak better law than the rest of the police and the magistrates who are skilled at that many, many years in Courtroom, while Desi, as you will see in a second, demonstrates a total ignorance of what's actually going on because he's unaware of certain other parts of the law, like criminal procedure rules. One would be better off to find out the rules of the court that you're in, wherein you're going to hold the law to account. So there is a process in the court that this man has been helping Desi with. It's also very evident that in the collation of defamation against Desi, that they intended to charge Channel ABC for that defamation, for the sovereign citizen argument that was put on the TV. Now let's be very clear here. I have spoken very loudly about the fact that these police officers serve The Hague and the United Nations. Wayne Glue is lying to you about his position as a police prosecutor, wherein he is a member of the Police Prosecutors Association in Haagstad in The Hague. He is a Hague prosecutor, obligated to uphold Criminal Code Volume 2, wherein it states Hague Conventions and the United Nations. Wayne Glue should know this very clearly. And this man has no clue about this, even when he was called up about 10 months ago and told very clearly that what he was doing would walk people into a serious issue with the government. Desi found that serious issue. Now, when we listen to what he said, this contradicts a little bit what Wayne said, but it's in the same vein, because Wayne's speaking from the position of a police officer and this guy's speaking from the position of a miner. He works on the rigs, So is that fishing, or is that mining, oil drilling, something like that? Hardly a legal professional who's spent his life either working with high-tech computers, the law, anything like that, that would involve keeping records on behalf of organisations like the government. So, very difficult to say this, but what is a Lawtard? Well, I think I'm looking at one right now.
Does this court obey the law, sir?
Just have a seat.
Does this court obey the law?
Have a seat.
Even just once?
Have a seat. Mr. Prosecutor, how many police witnesses?
4, Your Honour. There's Miss Quinn, a Gary French, law court and informant Porridge.
So 2 police and 2 civilian. Now, Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
In terms of your defence to the matter, what do you say? How many witnesses do you have?
I'll run my case where I'm going to run it, sir. Magistrate Stella Stuttridge has already progressed this matter. On the 13th of December last year.
Mr. Freeman, I've asked you a question.
I don't understand the question, sir. What was that?
How many witnesses do you have?
Witnesses?
Yeah.
I don't need witnesses.
Okay, so you have no witnesses? The purpose of this hearing is to determine how long the contested hearing will take.
Sir, it's not. That's not what Magistrate Stuttridge ruled, and I'm about to give you that information, and so far you suppressed me from giving that information.
This matter is listed for a contest mention.
So we can see Desi Ned Kelly Freeman standing in the courtroom asking the maggot that Wayne Glue described him as, the magistrate, the police magistrate, I will call him, being very calm, cool and collected because he knows Desi. And Desi stands up and says, "Do you follow the law?" Well, he's being told that it's a contest mention. Now, if you look up Victorian legislation, the criminal procedure rules, a contest mention is criminal, not civil, not a minor crime. It is a criminal matter. So Desi has been charged with a crime that no one around me has been able to discover what that actual criminal offence or charge is. Now, a contest mention is the second appearance to a preliminary mention in Victoria, where the preliminary would have been to see whether he pled guilty, and if he was going to plead not guilty, they need to discover evidence. They need to discover how long it's going to take to present that evidence. Do you follow the law, Your Honour? Right? And then I'm going to run this case how I want to run this case. Very unprofessional Lawtardy action that was probably discussed with his Lawtard Litigant Association people, and most likely Wayne Glue as well. This has been a continual circle jerk that I have watched for 20 years. 20 years. So he's already belligerent towards the judge when he could have been polite. He could have read the criminal procedure rules or the criminal court rules in other states to find out how the courtroom works before he presented any arguments. So you hear the magistrate ask the police officer, "I've got 4 witnesses, Your Honour. Clarify, are they 2 police officers and 2 civilians?" "Yes, Your Honour." "Desi, how many witnesses do you have?" "I'm going to run my case the way I want to." "Well, I'm sorry, Desi. The criminal court rules say that you're standing there in a technical situation called a contest mention, and the magistrate, only wants to know how long it's going to take to present your case. That's why you're there at this time, and you're talking about it in a stupid manner.
To give you that information, and so far you suppressed me from giving that information.
This matter is listed for a contest mention. It's running as a contest mention.
Can I speak now, please, sir?
You have a question.
On the 13th of December last year, Magistrate Stella Stuthridge identified serious issues I raised, being a serious abuse of process in this matter, an order that was not made according to law, and many counts of fraud and perjury by the applicant. As a result, I've implemented a voir dire that this case cannot proceed until these matters are dealt with. That was upheld by Magistrate Stella Stuthridge, who allocated a hearing, which is now a year later, this one, and she specifically said that Magistrate Cottrell is not to sit on the matter because he was the one that caused the problem, that Magistrate Watkins cannot because he isn't biased, and that you cannot either. And then the registrar, Sam out there at the front, told me 3 weeks ago that you're one of the magistrates that had recused yourself from this matter. And I'm very angry that the registrars couldn't get it right and went and allocated this hearing while you were sitting when it was supposed to be Magistrate David Farram, according to Magistrate Stella Stuthridge. She also stated in the court, on the record, which you need to check, prosecutions are on notice that the hearing will be an application to strike the matter out, nothing else. She said it is booked in for an application to strike the matter out. She specifically told that to Prosecutor Stuart Pritchard. There has been a shocking delay in justice in the past year waiting for my hearing. I've been back to court to try and get it heard sooner, which is a perversion of the course of justice, and I'm not ready to make any more concessions for people. I've been to court 15 times. You would have been the 5th magistrate, but as it's gone around in circle, the 4th magistrate to sit on this case. This travesty of justice and unlawfulness by Loretta Quinn, by the police and by this court has continued for 2.5 years.
Now, Desi's obviously frustrated. He doesn't know what's going on. He thinks he's being railroaded, but there is probably a reason this took a year to reassign this case. It might have something to do with the police officer continually submitting evidence to the court while Desi's unaware of that fact. And a court date is issued to find out how much evidence is going to be put before the court, and Desi could have listened to the police very intently to find out what he was up against, but instead his mind is on corruption and trying to manipulate the magistrate into seeing that corruption. Now, one must feel for someone that has to wait 2.5 years for justice. That's not fair. Okay? I've been through the same thing. I've sat in many court cases before both real judges and police magistrates, what Wayne Glue likes to call the maggot, even though the maggot is Wayne Glue, the police prosecutor. So something smells fishy here, and it's not Desi's case. It's the people that are teaching him and helping him to go down this route, whether they understand that or not. They are the ones liable for showing Desi the wrong way to do things. And we're seeing that right now in the courtroom. I'm not willing to make any more concessions for people. I've been to court 15 times. This is unusual. And this is what should have been brought to the Supreme Court long ago. Why would you continue arguing with people that are being corrupt against you when you have the opportunity to charge them for that corruption and see them before a higher court, which may have changed the course of that lower court or had it quashed altogether, thrown out? We can obviously see Desi's frustration with the legal system, but this is someone that believes he knows the law already when he's up against a magistrate that has been sitting that bench for who knows how long. He's not addressing rules of administration, rules of usufruct. He's not even brought up the Hague Conventions. He's seeing them as corrupt, not United Nations linked prosecutions. He's also not seeing internal law versus international law. He's also not seeing his crown, his God, his country. So in that respect, how can he stand at common law when the common law of a state doesn't apply to the ward of state? Now, we spoke about the sovereign citizen propaganda on the ABC. We spoke about how David Halpin, the magistrate that I sat before, broke the law and is now under mental health, operating for Southern Cross University as the propaganda mouthpiece for the executive branch of government Australia-wide. That's a very, very important reality when it comes to the ABC obviously defaming Desi as being a sovereign citizen, but not mentioning my name when it comes to David Halpin.
Even during the deaths, my family deaths I had 2 weeks after my sister-in-law dropped dead in front of the 4 kids, you and Evans and Eliades, French and Quinn and their lawyers all got in here and colluded all day long and harassed me for a full day in August. Then you adjourned it to November, and I was hounded and hammered again in the most sadistic way for a full day. And then I still didn't get the matter resolved because this court is still unable to resolve it according to law, which would only take 5 minutes. Now, the crimes that were committed by Loretta Quinn and Magistrate Cottrell took 17 minutes on the court record. It has now taken me 17 months to try and get the law simply upheld and get this matter reversed. And I can assure you, I am extremely angry and extremely determined, and I have no more concessions or grace left for anyone involved, and am ready to launch private prosecutions against anyone who breaks the law in the court today. Now, I have the laws that are being broken, sir.
Freeman.
I'm being cut off, yeah? Okay.
Magistrate Stuffridge has made no orders in this matter. The matter is listed for a contest mention today.
So you're going to railroad me again, okay?
I have no evidence that what you say is correct. So, in terms of not calling any witnesses, it would appear to be a factual argument.
Correct, sir.
I have evidence to give on the stand, sir.
It's a question of factual argument.
I have evidence to give up there to this court. That's my right.
Hey.
Oh, yes, it is today.
Not
It is
today.
my right to a fair hearing. 2.5 years. Well, this needs to go to the
Today,
Supreme
Mr.
Court.
Freeman.
Do not adjourn this case, sir. You will be perverting the course of justice, and I will prosecute you.
What's the matter for you? How long will this matter take, Mr. Prosecutor? I would imagine at least a day.
At least a day, Your Honour.
This court.
So we can see Desi has no idea what's going on. You will not adjourn this case again, Your Honour. The magistrate, is not there to adjourn your case. This is a contest mention, Mr. Freeman. How long will this take for you to give evidence, Mr. Police Officer? I expect a whole day. Desi could have said, I expect about 5 hours to give my evidence, Your Honour, and I have 2 witnesses. this matter would have been dealt with in 5 minutes and he would have been out the door awaiting a hearing. But he believes that he's under trial today, but it's just a contest mention. The time where discovery of the evidence takes place before the hearing, so the magistrate can put aside how many days or a week that he needs to file in the diary for Desi's appearance. The police prosecutor is very well aware of this fact and is sitting there as calm as day, because he knows that's all he has to do in there on this day. Now, Desi believes that this is a fraud, corruption, and Wayne Glue, a police prosecutor, should know better than this, right? We listened to Wayne talk about, the people won't put up with this injustice, right? Wayne, I am sure, is involved in teaching these idiots. And if he is doing that on purpose, then he is responsible for seeding these people with misinformation. Otherwise, these people are not competent enough to discover the information that's required to go through this court case competently. And the incompetence comes from waiting 2.5 years. He has a rightful claim there to complain about the time, but we're not aware of any hearing taking place up to this date. The police could have been submitting evidence to the court every month for months before the court decided to appoint a date for a contest mention where they already had the police evidence on file. That would have left Desi to put his evidence on file. Here's the evidence that I've got, Your Honour. I submit a whole entire copy for you. Here's a copy for the police prosecutor. I've got a copy for myself stamped by the registrar out the front. We all have copies of the evidence now, Your Honour. You're able to read that in your free time, Your Honour. You're able to read that in your free time, Mr. Police Prosecutor. I'm being railroaded. This is not justice. This is not the correct way to deal with this matter. I feel sorry for him that it's taken so long. No one's aware of the charges. The child custody, child protection was mentioned by Wayne Glue, and now we have other evidences that his wife was not on the premises when the police turned up. Is it possible that his wife was protecting the children from his sovereign citizen ideologies when they should have been Anzac and Crown and all the things that define who you are in international law that give you a right of self-determination? No, none of that stuff is even mentioned, and it's not the place to mention it.
Prosecute you.
It's a matter for you. How long will this matter take, Mr. Prosecutor? I would imagine at least a day.
At least a day, Your Honour.
This court has constructive knowledge of perjury being committed. You'll be aiding and abetting that if you proceed. You'll be in breach of Justice Courtroom's rulings in the High Court, Nicholas versus the Queen, 1998, by proceeding in a matter that is an abusive process, where there are other serious matters raised which have been identified by a previous magistrate. Yeah. You cannot proceed in this matter by ruling of the High Court of Australia. If you're acting in criminal bias, the magistrate acting oppressively or when interested, I have a right to a fair hearing and I have a right to justice. If I do not get it, this proves that this is not a court of competent jurisdiction and you will be prosecuted, sir. For the Supreme Court and High Court Justices listening to this recording in the future, take note the Magistrate Dunn is not allowing me to have a fair hearing, is obstructing justice and is in breach of the law.
So what a facepalm moment Oh my God, you're not allowing me a fair hearing. I hate to tell you, Desi, but the magistrate is setting you up for a fair hearing by asking you what all your evidences are and how many witnesses you have and how long this is going to take. The magistrate doesn't want to waste weeks on you. He's got hundreds of other idiots to deal with as well. So the court needs to know how much time they need to waste on you. And the police prosecutor said, I reckon about a day. And given what you were going to put before the court, that might have stretched it out into a second day. And that would have been a fair hearing, right? Given that you're not in a hearing right now, you're in a contest mention, which is specifically there to speed up your hearing so that they jump straight into the evidence when you get to your hearing. You're being told this by the magistrate in front of you, but you're not hearing it. Now, Desi's argument's a fair argument. I don't doubt that at all. Desi has pointed out the criminal actions of some things that have happened during his appearances, and I don't see fair justice if you're waiting 2.5 years to get to that point. That's very frustrating when you don't know your future and you're held in distress. And I say distress because if jail is looming for you, that distress is real and imminent, and the longer you extend that out, that is an abuse of power. So I do agree with Desi in the premise of his argument. Is it the right place to make that argument and accuse the contest mention magistrate of denying you a hearing that he's actually setting up for you?
And is in breach of the law. So I have an hour allocated for this hearing. I want to get up on that stand and give some evidence.
No, you're not.
Okay, well, you're perverting the course of justice. I've had enough of it. You're acting oppressively and when interested in breach of the Crimes Act.
Are you available on the 5th of February?
No, sir, you have constructive knowledge of crimes committed in this court. You are now aiding and abetting them.
Are you available on the 5th of February?
Peter Dunn, I arrest you for aiding and abetting.
Okay. But
I arrest you for acting oppressively and when interested and perverting the course of justice. You must stand down. You are now in my custody and under arrest. You are not free to leave.
would you just mind asking...
For the Supreme and High Court Justices listening to this recording in future, take note that the magistrate is under arrest for serious crimes committed against me, as have been outlined in numerous hearings and this one. I have no choice but to make this arrest under Section 458 of the Crimes Act, which is my lawful right to do so. This case cannot proceed. Right, who's the highest ranking police officer here?
That'd be me.
Right.
No.
So you're obliged...
No, I'm not.
Excuse me, you're obliged...
Excuse me for a moment. Just excuse me, Mr.
A
Freeman.
arrest has been made.
Mr. Freeman, just excuse me for a moment.
Honor, please.
5th of February at this court or at Juliet, at this court or at Myrtleford? Well, I need to know now whether it's Myrtleford or... Is 5th of February a Myrtleford day? Okay, 5th of February at Myrtleford.
It's pretty clear to see that the police prosecutor's not going to play party to something that is stupid. It's also very clear that the magistrate is now setting that hearing date. You've held me in all these hearings up to now. What if they have just been mention after mention after mention after mention because you keep playing this stupid shit on the magistrate instead of actually getting to that hearing? The magistrate then asks the police behind the police prosecutor whether it might be the registrar, it might be the clerk of the court that he's talking to look into the diary to clarify that the 5th of February is a viable date to have the hearing, and clarifying with the police if they're able to attend Myrtleford Court which is obviously in Victoria. They all clarify that this is a good time and date. The police behind him acknowledge that they can turn up on that date, and I'm not sure if the police prosecutor sitting there at the bench will prosecute the hearing, but they are obviously prepared and have accepted the date. And again, Desi's not even listening to what's going on.
Mr. Doss, I arrest you as well for malfeasance of public office and refusing to do your duty. All right? And your other charges will be added to that. Okay? So for the court record, for the Supreme Court and High Court, just as it is in this recording, you're both under arrest. This matter has stopped. You are not free to leave. You are in my custody. If you leave, you will be escaping lawful custody and resisting arrest. That's the law under Section 458 of the Crimes Act, which I am entitled to enact.
I think that's your
according to the circumstances.
That would be your interpretation.
Say what you want. Yeah. All right.
Well, no, but just because you say so, Mr. Freeman, doesn't mean it's right. 5th of February.
Please, then, Constable Sarah Williamson. It's now your role to arrest Mr. Dossler and Mr.
Time to go, Mr. Freeman. The matter's put in for a hearing.
Done, Mr. Freeman. You're
Okay.
excused from...
I'll collect my papers. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Absolutely disgusting.
That's your interpretation. You don't understand what that section of law actually states. Now, if you read that section, and I don't have it in front of me right now, and just go from memory, he's right in the first instance. But there are a couple of clauses that you need to satisfy to make that claim true. Now, one of the clauses in this act is a request from a police officer for you to go and arrest someone else on that police officer's behalf. That's a police officer giving a civilian the authority to make an arrest. That doesn't apply here. The only thing that could be construed here to apply is part 3 of number 1 in that act, in that these criminal offences are being repeated, meaning that the person that you want to arrest is a repeat offender. Another clause here is that they may escape and fail to appear. Non-appearance would make that a reasonable arrest. You're talking about two people that serve the Crown in their jobs that hardly have the capacity to run away after they are charged. Now, what charges would you have put on the table to be able to call a lawful arrest? Just saying, wah, 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 you're all corrupt, I arrest you, blah, 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 is what the magistrate's talking about here. That's your interpretation. Have you actually read this section of law and understood how it actually works? The magistrate is now laughing at him, and this just made his hearing that much worse, because the police prosecutor has also been threatened with arrest, and the constable or senior sergeant or unstable cunt behind him is not willing to make that arrest. Very evident. It's also evident that the police prosecutor said, you address the magistrate. Don't address me, you address the magistrate. You're out of turn here. He's not following the court's rules to be able to stay in honour. He is now in dishonour. And I can't explain this enough to you tantying tards. If you want to listen to Wayne Glue, this is what you'll end up like. If you want to listen to Rodney Cullerton, this is what you'll end up like. If you want to follow all of these stupid groups on Facebook, this is what your problems are going to be. I cannot express this enough. I have watched this time and time and time again since I discovered things in a council server back in 2009, 2010. I brought those things up with the CEO of that council, Rex Mooney, criminal muppet in the position of CEO of that council. Right? I've witnessed crimes that these people have covered up. At some point you have to realise which battles you want to pick as well. Sometimes it's easier to kiss it on the cheek and move on rather than destroying your life over all this stupid shit. Now, I put stuff on the record to collate evidence over time to get to a point where, to stand in that capacity, I can walk into the Supreme Court and win. And I did. I walked into the Supreme Court and charged a police officer with numerous offences, and the justice, the judiciary in that Supreme Court said, your work is meticulous, there's no point carrying on, no one needs to speak. Your work has done all of it for you. If my paperwork submitted to the Supreme Court long before the hearing date was issued was enough to stop the hearing date, I still appeared at the hearing date to hear that justice walk into the room and say, oh look, I have two lawyers before me, the police prosecutor and myself, acknowledging that I have the capacity at law to run my own matters. What I am watching here is a tantying child who is incapable of listening or understanding the process of the court. And it's not Desi's fault 100%. It's all of you Facebook tards gathering together, sharing all your retarded shit with each other to the point where you're brainwashing each other. And who do you know in your groups that might be Fixated Persons Victoria or Fixated Persons New South Wales, like you had the problem with Matthew Reason hiding in amongst his Facebook groups and Discord servers? This is very evident. And my warning for all of you into the future is, stop this stupid shit.
Shameful. Yeah. Pray for the need. A document for the court, sir. I must leave here, according to law.
Well, if you leave it at the front counter, that'll be just...
Okay. Because you are under the Criminal Code Act, Section 83(4), because you are using force and intimidation to interfere with my Australian democratic and political right to have my case heard.
Off you go, Mr. Freeman. Off you go.
I arrest you, sir, and I
Time to
arrest
leave.
you.
Time to leave.
Time to leave. Grab your papers and off you go.
So all of you police in the courtroom and magistrate are arrested according to law. This will be taken up in the Supreme Court. I'm now under duress. I fear for my safety, given that there are four armed criminals.
Your phone and all your bits and pieces.
Four armed criminals surrounding me in an intimidating manner. I'm under duress.
Off you go. Bye, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you for your time.
You'll be receiving your charge sheet summons.
That's an important statement from the magistrate. If you file it out the front, that will be fine. no, I need to impress on you that I'm going to put you all under arrest. You've all broken the law, rah, 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 right? The registrar is where you get your documents stamped and dated so that they are received by the court. If you had multiple copies of that document and then submitted them to the police prosecutor after you had had them stamped by the registry, they would be lawfully submitted documents, right? The magistrate would be obligated to read it as it had been submitted as case material. The police prosecutor might want to rebut it, considering it's part of case material. You can't stand there in your courtroom and say, under law, I have to give you this. You are just making shit up. And the fact that you recorded it and then published it on Rumble with some sort of ego that you'd done the right thing, when it's now very evident how stupid you people actually are. You're uneducated muppets. I put that very clearly on the table. Wayne Glue, you are partly responsible for these uneducated muppets. Rodney Culleton, you are partly responsible for these uneducated muppets. And you saw that fat idiot in the courtroom and his teacher on the video last time. This is an embarrassment for you as children of the government. Children of the government. And you saw all the children tantying in the streets yesterday with their Great Australian Tanty, where Bob Hawke spoke the words that I used at the beginning of this video. I'll go into the protest tomorrow with some more evidence of your stupidity as the children of the government. We're the children of the government, right? If you cannot understand what I have said to you today, it's time for you to stop altogether. You are incompetent, incapable, and you should not attempt to do things like this. I have no problem with you presenting yourself to a court. Not at all. A magistrate might actually see competence in you and treat you with some modicum of respect because you're not relying on the state. Okay? A justice might call you a lawyer, like the justice did in the district court up in Cairns. That gives you a credence, a precedent to say, I am a lawyer, I have studied the law, I am competent at what I do. But in this video with Desi, he has gone nuts at a court, which is just a contest mention, and the court is doing their best to try and get him into a hearing, and Desi is partly right. Why the fuck has it taken 2.5 years? And it might be right that these officers are fucking criminals and he was prepared to charge them in the Supreme Court. They needed to jump the gun. That's why everything else smells real fishy. That's why it might seem that the police have murdered 3 of their own officers and murdered Desi to try and push the sovereign citizen ideology, but at the same time, I'm watching an idiot in a courtroom. A literal idiot in a courtroom. Now, the one that introduced this video, we spoke to on the phone about 10 months ago, and he demonstrated himself to be incompetent and didn't want to speak to us anymore because we impressed upon him that what he was doing was fucking stupid. And I mean, fucking stupid, man. Fucking stupid. I don't understand. At some point, do you realise now that you're a mechanic or a plumber or a rig worker or a Woolworths retail attendant or a house cleaner? You're not high industry, high technology, legal, or any of those things that describe you or define you to be competent at the things that you're doing, and you're not displaying any competence when you're in a mention that should have only taken a quarter the time of that video. All of the time in that courtroom was wasted by Desi making spurious claims against people that may or may not have done things wrong. Now, given what has gone on with the propaganda in the Sovereign Citizen, ABC, given what's gone on with the 2.5 years and the amount of magistrates he named and the amount of police officers he named, it is very possible that they are a bunch of criminal muppets that should have been put before the Supreme Court, and they may have had that concern that a real judiciary may have found them guilty of offences that might have seen those police officers and those magistrates go to jail. We will never know now, right? And the way that the Australian government, Victorian police have acted with army support demonstrates very clearly they may have been wanting to murder a man to cover their own arses. But at the same time, Desi just showed you how incompetent at the law he actually is. Now, we move forward now to him leaving the courtroom and now speaking to a camera after just walking out of this contest mention.
I'm here with Desi Freeman out the front of the Wangaratta Courthouse. Desi has just done an appearance. And how did it go today?
Well, as usual, that was my 15th hearing, by the way, in 2.5 years. The court is totally corrupt and lawless. They're unable to obey a single law. Magistrate Dunn was scheduled on here, who'd already been banned from hearing any cases against me and had even recused himself as well. He heard the case, was smart-ass and arrogant the way he's always been, had absolutely no regard for the law or for natural justice or for my right to have my case heard.
What I don't understand here is 15th appearance and then a hearing. And this is a contest mention. Oh, he didn't give me a fair hearing. This is not a hearing, you dumbass. This is a contest mention, otherwise known as the discovery of evidence. Right? This sets you up for your hearing. And if you are competent enough to read the criminal procedure rules and the criminal court rules of Victoria, you might have known that before you walked in the door. Now, is it possible that he got to a hearing and then that hearing was struck out and he's back in discovery again and having mentions after mentions after mentions? What I don't comprehend here is why 15 appearances? Now, I started 5 different cases and then was charged and ended up in a 6th case while in the Northern Territory. I can tell you from my experience of actually going through the discovery of evidence and then entering a hearing that I was in court 2 to 3 times a week for up to 2.5 years. I would have appeared in that courtroom maybe 60, 70, 80 times before my court case had come to an end. 15 times in the magistrate's court with some fuddy-duddying going on, because he did mention all of these magistrates' names and did have complaints against them, as well as making complaint against the police, could demonstrate an unfair, unjust scenario. It could demonstrate the liability of the police if he had walked into the Supreme Court and made those claims and charged the police either civilly or criminally. Now, it's very unlikely that a court would allow him to file if they already knew that he was incompetent at managing a case. I sat down with the registrar in Cairns, who was very professional and actually hinted at a few things that I needed to know inside the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules. They helped me understand the rules, but did not help me with my case matter. This is very different to whining and bitching and then coming out of the court and making all these spurious claims on camera while no one watching knows what the actual charges that were issued to him by the police prosecutor are. We're not to know right now whether he's a child predator, whether he's had complaints made against him by his wife, whether his children made complaints to their school, or any of these things. But we're alluded to the Child Protection Corporation by that maggot Wayne Glue, who's been lying to you all for a very long time. He mentioned things that don't exist in the Constitution that do exist in federal laws under the Corporations Act 1989 and the Corporations Act 2001. He's not aware of the Hague Conventions. He's not aware of a police magistrate being a military arm of the Hague Conventions. He's not aware of the children being slapped into line by the United Nations. There are a lot of things missing here in his argument, which then leaves him with fuck all. And I mean fuck all. The stupidity that I have just witnessed is the reason you're all peddling this crap around, believing that you can be some sort of barrister, right, when you couldn't even clean a toilet. And that's the problem here. Now, in the David Halpin case, this is the interesting thing. And if you're listening out there, Mr. Barrister with the shiny bald head that approached me outside the court and said, you know, you're right, and you won't win in here, but you should keep going. You should hold David to account. A barrister said that to me. A barrister that was charging 9 Lismore police officers right before David Halpin. But here we have Desi, who can't even keep his wits about him in a 5-minute contest mention that he believes is a hearing.
And so, in trying to railroad me when I was prepared for a real fair hearing, I was forced to arrest him under Section 458 of the Crimes Act. I told him he was not free to leave and he was in my custody. I then told the prosecutor, Dosser, that it was his job as the highest rank in the room to make the arrest. And he's like, no. Okay, I got the next one, a senior constable, a woman. She wouldn't do it. So then they tried to chuck me out of the court illegally. I addressed the Supreme and High Court justices listening to the recording as to what was going on specifically. I then gathered my papers as this big custody officer and this other goon with guns came and threatened me with physical violence against Section 83.4 of the Criminal Code Act. I then arrested both of them. So four cops in the courtroom and the magistrate have just been arrested in Wangaratta because they are filthy, corrupt, disgusting, lawless predators who seem to get some thrill out of messing with people's lives. So, people of Australia, every one of you, start arresting and prosecuting these criminals. These criminals are now going to be prosecuted, starting in the Supreme Court, no doubt, and a private prosecution. They think they're above the law. They're not, and they're about to find out.
You might want to know what the specific accusations and charges you want to file are before you go rambling on about how they're all criminals. Now, he mentioned everyone that was in the courtroom. He mentioned this getting kicked out. I had something different in the Northern Territory. I had a sheriff lean into my ear while I was surrounded by 6 police officers, and the sheriff said, if you don't come with me now, they will arrest you. That would have seen me go off to a Northern Territory jail where there is no parole. A sheriff then took me upstairs and asked me to stop recording so we could have a conversation, and that conversation turned into, Steve, you are correct. You are not going to be belligerent towards any of my officers, are you? Meaning the Sheriff's Department. No, I'll be quite honourable if you honour the truth in the matter. And I sat there with this sheriff for an hour discussing that, and then was denied access to the courtroom from that moment forward. I wasn't even allowed to file in a case matter. The registrar in the courtroom stepped two steps back from the counter and folded her arms and called the registrar out, and the registrar said to me, unfortunate for you, Steve, you no longer have access to the courtroom to file any more documents. In that week, I saw the police commissioner of the Northern Territory plodding down the main street of Darwin, and as soon as he saw my face, he did a beeline straight across the road to avoid me and kept walking down the other side of the road. They left me alone. They realised that I was a non-belligerent and I was intelligent enough to handle my own matters, and I was not going to abuse the system. I proved this with Chris Cox, the administrator of the Supreme Court of the Northern Territory, when I asked him on video, whose courtroom is this? And he had to acknowledge that I was right. It belongs to the people of the Northern Territory, not the justices that sit in it. So you start to understand you need to know things to be able to speak up. Now, private prosecution, what he means is, dumbass, he either means a civil claim or criminal charges in the Supreme Court by him. Not in the private, right? He is, in his private capacity, entering into a public building to press charges against public officials while under oath, namely police officers that are obligated to their oath to the sovereign at law. And we sent mail to a guy named Steve, an ex-police officer of Victoria that is involved in PAC's team. And Steve, why'd your hair go very grey so quickly? Did you look at all that documentation and shit yourself? Did you realise that you've been attacking your own countrymen on behalf of Zionist powers, not realising that the entire time you were in your job, until you shot the shit out of them all onto King's Domain and then felt guilty about attacking your own countrymen at their own war memorial? That's interesting, Steve, from PAC's team, right? And here we have Desi. He could have had a credible claim in the Supreme Court. He could very well have had a very credible claim in the Supreme Court, and that's the reason the police have wanted to execute this man. Not just execute a warrant, execute him. And I make that claim very emphatically on a recording. It is very possible that Victorian police wanted to assassinate this man because of their own fuck-ups over 2.5 years of him trying to get a fair trial, where we're watching a contest mention of the discovery of evidence that should have happened in the first instance. This would have been his second court appearance if it was just. And then he would have had a hearing. So my question is, what happened in the other 15 visits to the courthouse? Were they mentions? Were they preliminary mentions? Were they contest mentions? Were they a hearing? Were they medical examinations? There could be a whole host of reasons why he would have been requested to attend that court, but he hasn't been honest about it. And you can see now he's angry. He's pissed off. He believes that he's been wronged when all I heard from that magistrate is, what's your evidence? How many witnesses you got? So we can get the fuck out of here. The police prosecutor knew this and then said to him, look, don't talk to me. Talk to the magistrate. I want to get out of here too. You're stopping me from grabbing a coffee across the road, you numbnuts.
And so, in trying to railroad me when I was prepared for a real fair hearing, I was forced to arrest him under Section 458 of the Crimes Act. I told him he was not free to leave and he was in my custody. I then told the prosecutor, Dosser, that it was his job as the highest rank in the room to make the arrest. And he's like, no. Okay, I got the next one as a senior constable, a woman. She wouldn't do it. So then they tried to chuck me out of the court illegally. I addressed the Supreme and High Court justices listening to the recording as to what was going on specifically. I then gathered my papers as this big custody officer and this other goon with guns came and threatened me with physical violence against Section 83.4 of the Criminal Code Act. I then arrested both of them. So four cops in the courtroom and the magistrate have just been arrested in Wangaratta because they are filthy, corrupt, disgusting, lawless predators who seem to get some thrill out of messing with people's lives. So, people of Australia, every one of you, start arresting and prosecuting these criminals. These criminals are now going to be prosecuted, starting in the Supreme Court, no doubt, and a private prosecution. They think they're above the law. They're not, and they're about to find out.
Let's just throw a nonsensical Bible quote in there, right? And then start calling everybody corrupt, and then asking the Chief Magistrate of Victoria to sack one of his magistrates. They don't work for us. They work for the United Nations under the Hague Conventions. They are employed by a foreign power under the peril of their own lives. This is why it scares them very hard when you know the rules and you know where they break them. And you're not pointing that out clearly at all. You don't even know what the laws of armed conflict involve here. You're not even aware of the Police Prosecutors Association based in The Hague at a place called Haagstad, right? This is nonsensical. He's angry. I've got all my evidence here. Well, why did you not say to the magistrate, I have this pile of evidence? He told you. So it's a factual argument. You have no witnesses. There is no hearsay. It is a factual argument you would like to make. Rah, Your Honour! Instead of, yes, you're correct, Your Honour. I have got a factual argument to make based on the evidences that I have in this folder. It may take me 3 hours to go through that argument, Your Honour. I have 2 witnesses to bring into the courtroom. I would like to question them. They might take 15 minutes each to question, and then the police prosecutor has to cross-examine them, Your Honour. I expect my day to take up about 5 hours, Your Honour. The police said, I expect mine to take about a day, Your Honour. Instead, listen to what you said and look at the anger in your face when you're believing that some kind of misjustice has taken place and you haven't even got to your hearing yet. So the hard part for me here is that I don't know what's gone on before this date. I'm not aware of his charges. I don't know what evidence the police have on him. But I do agree with Wayne Glue here in that it does smell very fishy in the way that the police have acted. And Wayne is a police officer. Wayne is a police prostituter. He's one of those cunts that have done this to you for his job and then come out and manipulated you to play this stupid shit. So is he working for the man, or is he just a dumb cunt? Right? And that's the honest truth here. I'm trying to be as politically correct as I could possibly be here. I don't know anything about Desi other than what I saw on Facebook, and seeing him act in the flesh here on video is not what I assumed he was from his profile on Facebook. I actually thought he was one of those bogans with a beard and a beer belly that lived on a property, but he's actually looks quite respectable man, right? He's got children around him and a wife. So I don't understand here why he's in the trouble he's in the first place. He's not a beer-bonging bogan with a beard on a property. You can see he's well shaven and well kept. He's reasonably well spoken. He's half educated, but he's educated by people like the Muppet that introduced the video, and people like Rodney Cullerton and Wayne Glue that believe they know everything about the law. Now, Rodney Cullerton's a failed and charged ex-senator, right, under section 44(4) of the Constitution. He lost his position in the Senate because he was a bankruptee. Pauline Hanson should lose her position in the Senate for being in adherence or obedience to Israel. Do you start to see now there are credible things that you can bring before the courts and bring before the politicians and make them adherent to the Constitution instead of talking the garbage that Wayne Glue throws at you, instead of ending up like Desi and not realising how the court works? I've got all this evidence I wasn't able to present today. It's a contest mention. When do you get to your hearing? What went on through the rest? Are the police criminals? Why would they use propaganda on the ABC to defame your character before they sent the armed thugs in to assassinate you? Would they have assassinated their own officers to keep up this propaganda? We know that Israel has the Hannibal Directive and is the murderer of its own military on October 7th. We know those things are true. We also know that Port Arthur was a false flag that was framed on the little Muppet that we saw Chopper Reed talk about in the video. I was eating my Trevelyan peas and then everyone was dead. Right? Doesn't sound like someone that's a killer, does it? It sounds like someone they put into jail, drugged to the eyeballs, and forced a confession out of. Right? Similar things are smelly and fishy here. Don't get me wrong. It does sound like the police are a criminal gang trying to silence him, but at the same time, he's demonstrated himself to be quite a lunatic. So we can only wait for evidence to come out. We can only wait to see who shot who. We can only wait for the ballistics reports. We can only wait for the statements from the criminal police that were operating on his property. We can only listen to the experience of a police officer in Wayne Glue, but we should also point out that Wayne Glue's a legal illiterate. He mentioned something that doesn't exist in the Constitution. He's a legal illiterate. He's the one teaching the rest of these muppets in Western Australia to play their stupidity. And I can sit here emphatically and state that this is pseudo-American legal garbage being used, and at the same time not knowing the court rules and the process of running a court case. So who do you blame here? Well, you got to blame Desi. Look at the poor performance and the stupid shit that we just watched. You got to blame the police because they led him up to this. You've got to look at the police because they may have murdered their own police officers to uphold a sovereign citizen ideology pushed by David Halpin out of the executive branches of Albo's office. You have to look at what's behind Albo. Are there Zionists, Mossad, CIA types behind Albo after the installation of Pine Gap and the arrival and taking down of your naval ensign in 1967? You've only got to look at the politicians who operate under the Great Seal of Australia and not the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia. There are many branches here that you can blame for this. But what I would like to say is, are the police murderers? Because it is looking that way. Okay? They had no reason to do what they did. And every bit of data that we've seen come out of the media, out of their friends, out of their colleagues, out of the muppets that have taught them their crappy law, it all doesn't add up, like Wayne said in the beginning. It doesn't add up. It is seeming like this government is willing to murder someone to uphold their sovereign citizen ideology, when we just witnessed not a sovereign citizen, we just witnessed an incompetent litigant, a totally incompetent person to stand in a courtroom. That's all we witnessed. So this sovereign citizen garbage that the police created out of America, where your Zionism came from, in the Great White Fleet that arrived back here in 1967 under the rules of usufruct, under the Hague Conventions. If you can't put all this together, stop trying this stupid shit, because all you'll do is end up with the police going, haha, another idiot we could fuck around, another idiot we can use in the propaganda, another idiot we can murder and no one will care. Okay, they did it to the Queensland people with the teacher on the run. They used the same ABC sovereign citizen propaganda to point the finger at the people that had the shootout in the farmhouse in Queensland. That smells fishy in itself. And that sounds like murder by police again. The reason it sounds that way is because the modus operandi of using the ABC to push a sovereign citizen program with David Halpin as the advertising criminal magistrate was followed by a shooting. The government tries to sway the mind of the idiot people in the community that don't care about themselves, their country or anything else, and just want to tanty you in the streets, call you all cookers. They just want to brainwash that side of society while putting fear into you. But do you recognise now that you're a bunch of lunatics in a lunatic asylum being managed by a nanny state because you're incompetent at your own affairs and therefore unable to stand up in a right of self-determination as a people in God, King and country? Wayne Glue and Rodney Culleton obviously believe in a sky daddy, not some foundations in the works of God already established at law to be a curial right before Justice Lonergan of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, that is in full acknowledgement of Section 12 of the Crimes Act, New South Wales, I think it's 1900. So I'll leave that there. That's a big episode for you to absorb and realise how dumb as fuck you actually are as a people. Sad for Desi. I don't wish death upon Desi. I hope the police act professionally, and I hope that Desi did not shoot those police. We need Desi alive so that someone can sit down with him in a jail and ask him the direct question, what happened? He needs to be free from being drugged by forensic mental health. He needs to be solid of mind to give evidence whether he did shoot them or not. He needs to say, I did not do it. And if that's the case, we've just witnessed a man saying he is under distress and fears for his safety in the front of police prosecutor, the court jail guy, what do you call him? He named him in the video, and the magistrates. But when I look at the video, he's saying that for that moment there where he is surrounded by 4 armed thugs while in a courtroom where they are not allowed to wear weapons, fearing for your safety in that specific incident could be justified. But carrying that over to being chased down and murdered by police could also be a long stretch, given that he's in a courtroom under distress playing arrest the magistrate, arrest the police officer, while they're all looking at him going, that's sad for you, little water state. You can't interpret the law. So that was a very difficult video to go through given the circumstances. It's taken me hours to put this together. So help out by jumping down into the comments and putting some donations in, buy a shirt, use the crypto accounts, use the bank account, etc. I'm trying to show you that there is a competent way to do this and there is a childish way to do this. And I'll also demonstrate to you that Wayne Glue is a fucking idiot. Like, really. I believe in the man above. Well, how does that define the blessing of Almighty God in your constitution? I'm going to use your flag, said Rodney Culleton. I'm taking it to Parliament to do politics. Is that a desecration of that man above that you all believe in, you sky daddy? Or are you capable of defining this blessing of Almighty God before the High Court? I don't think you are, because look at the result of Desi in the court after hanging out with Wayne Glue, Rodney Culleton and all these other fuckwits that have been trying to push you into some sort of following where it's unfortunate, but Wayne Glue sold books to make a profit off you. Rodney lost his farm. Wayne Glue lost his house. They're trying to use this to recover losses instead of stand up against people committing offences against your constitution. It's the only reason I'm here. So donations help me to carry on, and it helps me to put together videos like this that can demonstrate to you very, very clearly I do know what I'm talking about here. And I don't like seeing you hurt. And I don't want you hunted down by criminal United Nations based police officers. Don't want you bashed. I don't want you shot. I don't want you murdered. I want you to stand up as countrymen. And that might mean giving up things that you enjoy in society because they are linked to this detonation that you're all involved in. How do you fix a country if you're all tantying in the streets and look like cooked in the brain cookers when you could have stood there competently over the years and promoted your Anzac in a peaceful and respectful way? You instead chose to think you were above the law, like you did. You did things like try to arrest magistrates while magistrates are trying to help you to get to a hearing, like Desi did. And no one wants to be put on the sovereign citizen garbage on the ABC media by a criminal thug called David Halpin, who's now the marionette of the executive branch. Oh, Mr. Mental Health Patient, can you get back on the ABC media and defame some more of your countrymen? You're under our thumb. That could be said the same of all those police officers under oath to the Hague and Geneva Conventions through the Police Prosecutors Association in Haagstad at The Hague. Interesting that, right? Now, if Pauline Hanson's committed a Hague offence, wouldn't that mean those police are obligated to deal with those criminal offences? Or do we just walk into a courtroom and charge her because we're competent at doing it ourselves? So take from this today, that's a very long episode I never intended to make, but given the circumstances with the propaganda and the stupidity we see, be safe. Promote your Anzac. Don't do this shit. So, at the end, all I can say is I hope you've learnt something today. And I hope you stop using Facebook to play Lawtard. And I hope you stop trying to be lawyers. I have no problem with you presenting yourself before a court. You cannot represent yourself. You can only present what's in your mind. How do you represent that? That's like someone's second opinion. Oh, I believe he said this, Your Honour. I'm representing what he said. That's what a solicitor does for you, right? They represent you. You present yourself. So if a magistrate says to you, are you representing yourself? No, I'm not representing the dead legal fiction, Your Honour. I'm here to present my arguments. Right? It's now a difference between a crime and finance. So there are things you need to learn that these police officers will just hammer you for if you don't learn them. And we saw that, and we've seen that, and the propaganda's pushed. I hope you learn from today. So thank you for listening. Drop some donations in. We will keep going. We will demonstrate to you that all these losers like Wayne Glue, Rodney Cullerton and Ned Kelly, and the list goes on, all want to have their ego stroked. They don't want the truth. That's evident. And one should question Wayne Glue over his allegiances, given he was a police officer and of the Order of Australia. One should question where his actual allegiances are, Same with Rodney Cullerton. Are they just using you for something of their own self-gain? Have fun. Don't do this shit. Start to realise, grow up, defend, challenge those that are trying to break your constitution. Stop thinking you're above the law. You can hold up the law, but you can't do it if you're on the back foot. Till next time, enjoy.